Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining. I want to thank you for joining the resume building presentation. With me today are employment counselors from Department of Labor who are here to assist you in building your resume or improving what you currently have. Without further ado, let's get started. Take it away, Shauna.
Thank you. Hey guys, hope everybody's having a great day. My name is Shauna Case. I'm an employment counselor with New York State Department of Labor. I'm going to be speaking with you for the next 45, 50 minutes or so about your resumes. Everybody might be a little bit different on where they are in the resume process, and that is okay. Before coming to Department of Labor, I did work with high school juniors and seniors as well as some college students on how to build your resume. So I am definitely familiar with this. This is near and dear to my heart, and I hope that you have some good takeaways at the end of today's presentation. I'm just going to go over our agenda for today. We're going to talk about your resume, the purpose of your resume. We're going to talk about some roles a resume plays in the job search process. We're going to give you some tips on do's and don'ts on your resume. We're going to break the resume down into different sections. So we're going to take some time to look at the different sections of a resume, give some examples, go over some things there. But then we're going to talk about skill sets. You all have different types of skill sets, and we're going to identify those different sets and talk about how they're useful and how they play a role in your resume. We're also going to have some interactive activities, a little bit of interaction here while I'm speaking so that I can get some information as to where you are with things, and that just helps me out. We're also at the end, we'll have a little section for question and answer. If you have any questions, you'll be able to put them in the chat. So I'm going to get started. So we're going to start with a little pop quiz. Don't worry. This is, again, just to see where you are at resume and to see how comfortable with certain things and what you know. So in order to do this pop quiz, we're going to use something called Slido. So if you have a cell phone, that'd be great. If not, you can go to slido.com. If you want to take a picture of the QR code and get yourself loaded for Slido, that will be perfect. I'll give you guys a few minutes to just do that, and then I'll go to the first pop quiz question. All right, so first pop quiz question. What is the initial amount of time an employer takes to review an applicant's resume? Is it 15 to 20 seconds, 45 seconds, 1 to 2 minutes, 4 to 5 minutes? All right, give it a second here. So the correct answer is 15 to 20 seconds. So 50% of you. Oh, we're still going here. But that's it. So think about that, 15 to 20 seconds that a person is going to look at your resume. That is a very small amount of time, right? So we need to make sure as we're building that resume, we're making sure it's the right fit, right? All right. Good job, guys. Second question. Why do you need a resume? Is it a marketing tool? Is it to obtain a job interview? Does it require, you guys are going so quickly here, I can't read all the questions or all the responses. Is it required of many employers or is it a requirement of many employers or organizations? You guys are good. All of the above. Correct. So it is all of these different things, right? So you need a resume for all of these different components. Employers like to look at resumes. You want to get a job interview, right? And it's a marketing tool. Good job. When writing a resume, it is important to make sure you use correct tenses, proofread it at least twice, keep it updated, or all of the above. You guys are good. Very good. Yep. You want to make sure you're doing the following things. You want to make sure you're keeping updated. You're definitely proofreading it, maybe even more than twice. And then you want to make sure you're using the correct tenses. So absolutely 100%. Good job. How many pages in length should a resume be? 1 to 2 pages, a half a page, 3 to 4 pages, or long enough that it fits all the information needed? Yep. So again, good job, guys. 1 to 2 pages, 100% correct. It's kind of funny because I did have students say, oh, just long enough that it fits all the information you need on there. It doesn't make a difference how long or not long it is. As long as all the information's there, you're good to go. But you guys are correct. 1 to 2 pages, no longer than that. Good job. So that's our quiz. So it looks like you're pretty familiar with some things with the resume. But I want to kind of make you aware of a few things. A resume has some hidden messages, right? So think about that for a second. When you're handing your resume in, somebody's looking at it, whether it's an employer or it's a college or it's for a scholarship, and that resume is giving some hidden messages. And those things are, if your resume looks neat and well organized and it's no errors and it has a professional appearance to it, that person looking at that resume is going to assume that you as an individual are a neat, well organized, attention to detail, careful and competent person, right? They're going to say, wow, this document that I'm looking at really reflects what this person must be. All right. So this is why it's important to make sure that as you're building your resume, you're taking the time out to make sure it's well done because it's representing you. And there's those hidden messages there. So what is the purpose of a resume? Well, it's to get an interview, right? Obviously you're looking for employment and you want to get an interview. Now, for some of you, if you're doing it for a college or a scholarship, I'll talk about that in a little bit, but that's a little bit different. In this case, you're looking to get a position somewhere. Maybe it's an internship. And you want to make sure that resume is top notch because the point is that they're going to look at this and say, wow, this resume is outstanding. I want to know more about this person. So it's to get that interview. It should attract attention and create interest. It should describe your accomplishments and provoke attention. It should show your skills. It should tell the prospective employer what you can do, what you've done, who you are, and what you know. It should have enough information for the employer to be able to evaluate your qualifications. It must interest the employer enough to invite you in on that interview, right? This is a resume is a professional document about you. It's going to, like I said, tell that employer or that college what you have to offer them. Use your resume to highlight items that indicate you're a good worker, you're qualified for the position, and you bring desirable skills to the job. So that's very important. Now, how does the resume help you? And this kind of ties into the slide I just talked about, but resumes tell the employer about your experiences, your skills, your work history, things that you've done. Use your resume to highlight these items, indicate that you're a good worker, that you're qualified for the position, you're bringing those skill sets to the job. It also can show them what you can learn, that you're able to continue learning. If you're a student and you have little or no previous job experiences, you have to enhance other things that you've done in your school or in your community. Maybe you didn't have like a job with an employer specifically, but maybe you had a babysitting job, or maybe you cut lawns, you cut grass and did lawn care. Those are things that might not be from a specific company, but they're experiences that you had that you can put on your resume. You want to tailor your resume correctly to whatever you're applying to. A couple things to think about too here, because again, you might be using your resume for numerous things, but if it's for a college application or a scholarship, you want to make sure that you are tailoring that resume to meet those needs as well. So it's for a scholarship, you want to make sure you're reading what the scholarship is asking and then tailoring the resume to fit that. If it's asking about, honors or academics, you're highlighting those things. If it's asking about community service, you're going to highlight what you've done for community service. Same thing like if you're looking for a job, right? You're reading the job description and you're going through that job description and say, okay, what are they looking for here? And I always say this is a little bit old school. Maybe I'm a little bit old, but I print out a job description and I take a highlighter and I go through and I read the description, I highlight it because it helps me move forward with what I need on my resume, right? And so many times I work with, college students or high school students and I say, what are you using your resume for? And sometimes they're not quite sure or clear on what the job description is looking for. And that's when you take a step back and say, let's print it out and let's review it. Okay. But your resume is the first thing an employer is going to see. They're not going to see you visually. They're going to see that resume and they're going to learn about what you're going to bring. What are your abilities, what you can do. So again, this is how that resume is going to help you. It's the first impression really of what you're putting out there for employers to see from you. So here's some tips. We're going to go through some tips. Here's some things you want to make sure you're doing. Keep it to 1 page in length. Now, as you grow professionally, it might spill over into 2 pages and that's fine. But again, right now where you're at, you're probably at 1 page and that's perfect. Keep the format neat and easy to read. Again, you don't want to overly put too many words on the page. You don't want to make it that when your eyes look at it, it's overwhelming. So again, easy format. You want to be able to easily read it. I like bullet points. That's kind of like how I feel it's eye attracting. Make sure the contact information is correct. It's current, it works, and it's professional, which means, and a lot of times we don't think about this, but one of the biggest things I see is that we don't always like to do voicemails anymore. So I will say that when I work with younger individuals, they'll have a voicemail set up and they will never check it or clear it out. So if I'm an employer and I'm calling you and your voicemail picks up, but then it says your voicemail's full, I'm going to probably hang up and go to the next person. I'm not going to go back to see if it's ever been emptied out or the voicemail's not set up. So again, that is really an important thing to make sure that your voicemail is working. Email, have a professional email address. If it's a Google email, maybe it's, samsmith24@gmail.com. And you're checking that email, it works, and you check the junk box as well, because I might be employer reaching out to you and it goes into your junk folder and you never see it. So make sure if you're sending out your resume to places, on your email or on your resume, you have the correct email and the phone number and that it's set up correctly. Make sure your spelling and grammar are correct. Match your skills to your job, which is what I just talked about in a previous slide, reading the job description and making sure you're identifying the skills and you're having the right things on the resume. We'll get a little bit more into skills in a few slides. Be mindful of applicant tracking systems. So an applicant tracking system, it's a new form of technology that employers are using. And when you apply to a position and you send your resume in, it doesn't hit human eyes. It goes through a program that looks at keywords that match the job description in your resume. So if the keyword in the job description is computer skills, and you don't really talk about computer skills very much in your resume, it's going to go through the applicant tracking system, and it's not going to flag it as matching what they're looking for. You could be the perfect candidate for the job, but because you don't have the right keywords, it doesn't go through the applicant tracking system successfully. Okay. So you want to make sure that if you're applying to a company and they're using those systems, that you're doing whatever you can do to make sure your resume is applicant tracking system good to go, which I also tell people not to have a lot of color, like lines on your resume, like different types of borders and shading and things like that. Make sure you take those things off because it can just mess up the system sometimes. Include personal accomplishments and soft skills. We'll talk about soft skills in a couple of slides. Do a summary statement, not an objective. So don't put a job objective on the top of your resume. Tell the truth. This is something that I've noticed that some students don't realize that they exaggerate what their skills might be, or they're not so sure if they have enough on their resume. So they try to make it more powerful and add some more things to it that might not be exactly correct. So make sure you tell the truth on your resume. Use real or proper English. Don't use jargon. And sometimes students will write how they speak, and that's a little bit different. And so the wording isn't exactly correct. So make sure you're not using too much jargon or you're abbreviating things. So again, proper English. Use powerful verbs to explain what you're doing. We'll give you some of that too as we move on to the PowerPoint. But again, explaining what you do with powerful verbs is great. Here are some don'ts. So we did some things you want to make sure you're doing. Here are some things you want to make sure you're not doing. Don't use wild or loud or crazy fonts or bright colors, especially for applicant tracking systems, or if you're going to a job fair event. You don't want to have that on a piece of paper. You might want it to stick out, but it sticks out in all the wrong ways and reasons. Don't have huge paragraphs on your resume. Remember when I said make it eye appealing? If there's lots to read, people don't want to read lots of things. They want it to be easy to find. Using a template. Now, templates can be helpful. They can also cause issues. One thing that I do see when I worked with in working with people building resumes, if they want to use Google Docs, there are templates within Google Docs. The problem is it can become limiting when you want to go in and update it and add more to it. Another thing I noticed with Google Docs is that people really struggle with things like the margins and getting more words on a page. When they switch over to Microsoft or Word, it's so much easier. And they don't believe me until they try it. Sometimes using Word is a lot easier for building a resume than Google Docs. Don't be negative in your resume. You want to be positive. You want to have a positive mindset, talk about yourself in a very, very good way, and you don't want to have anything negative on there. Do not have a section on your resume that says references available upon request. That is dated. You can have a separate page with your references on it if an employer asks for it. Do not include random, unrelated, or off-putting hobbies. For example, I once was working with an individual who was really into kayaking, which was really cool, but he had a whole section on his resume about the kayaking. And it was just a really cool hobby he enjoyed, which is wonderful. but on the resume, it didn't really match what he was doing for employment. So we took that off. He was putting it on there, hoping that I think it filled some space and also talked about something he truly loved, but it really didn't hold anything to the job that he was applying for. Um, don't put on there any personal information about yourself, things like relationship status, or if you have any children, or if you have any type of disability. That does not need to go on your resume. That is personal information. Keep that off. Also, do not put your social security number on your resume or cover letter. Though, again, personal information does not go on there. And the other thing that I think sometimes I've seen happen, and I don't think they do it on purpose, is they steal the exact descriptions of the job description, the wording, and they put that on the resume. So if the job description saying, you need to have a specific skill set and you have to have so many years of doing something in a certain area, they literally type it right from the way the job description is into their resume. You want to make sure it's your own wording. You're not copying it from somebody or from the description itself. All right, so we talked about some do's, we talked about some don'ts. Now we're going to kind of switch it up a little bit. We're going to go into each section of the resume. So I'm sure all of you have seen a resume before. When you look at a resume, you're going to see the top is a header, then you're going to have a career profile, you're going to have an education setting, or not setting, a section. Work experience might be on there. You might have volunteer, extracurricular. You could also have a related course work experience section on there. You might have an internship section on there, and then skills. So there's these different sections of a resume, and they don't have to go in this particular order. Clearly, the heading is on the top, and then the career profile. You have flexibility to move things around as to where you think it's most valuable and important on your resume. But it's important to understand these different sections and how to create them and utilize them and have them done well. So we're going to start with the header. That's the first thing that they're going to see. It's going to have your name, where you live, which is city and state. You don't have to put your full address on there anymore. Some resumes don't even list the city and state that they live in. That is omitted for some people. And depending on where you're looking to apply, again, it's you don't have to have it there. It's not required, but it could sometimes be helpful. Email address and phone number. That again is also on your resume. We talked about being correct and it's useful and it's all there and you can see it. Where should the information go? Again, the top of the page. Usually keep it centered. It can be off to the left if you want it to be, but it stands out, right? Your name should be in bold font, standing out, that it sticks out between everything else on that resume. So I have some examples to show you. Here's a couple examples of headers. So the top one here is Michael Jones. He lives in Saratoga Springs, New York. There's his phone number. There's his email address. Very professional. It's kind of like a block format, as you can see, like, his name's on top and then underneath it's Saratoga. And then under that, it's the phone number and then it's his email. One way that you can do it. The one below, which you see Christina Smith, you'll see that she lives in Albany, New York, her phone number and her email address. And that's one line underneath her name. Either sample heading here is fine. It's personal preference and choice as to which one you want to use. Sometimes when you need more space on a page, you might use Christina's over Michael's, but again, there are two perfect headings that you can use as you're building your resume. Their names stick out. They're very clear. You can see Michael, his name is, the M is capitalized, the J is capitalized, and the rest is lowercase, but his name's still sticking out, right? And when you look at Christina, it's all caps. That's fine as well, but it's still sticking out. And that's what you want for them, for individuals to see, employers to see. All right, so that's the header. And now we're going to talk about the career profile. So the career profile is the only real small paragraph you might see on your resume. This also has different names to it too. You might hear it be called job summary or resume summary. It does have different names from time to time, but again, it's underneath your header and it's going to address to the employer in a few couple of sentences why you might be the greatest fit for this position, right? So it's a brief statement that highlights your skills and experiences that best match that job description. This career profile will be tweaked with every job that you apply for. Or if you're applying to different colleges, this might be tweaked, or different scholarships, this area might be tweaked, depending on what they're looking for. And you might have a variety of different skill sets, different experiences, and you want to make sure that the ones that best highlight what they're looking for are highlighted in this career profile. Okay. So again, it has different names. It's concise paragraph that highlights your most relevant skills, experience, key achievements, essentially providing a snapshot of your qualifications to potential employers right at the beginning of your resume. It should be tailored to each specific job that you apply for by incorporating keywords from the job description and emphasizing your most valuable contributions. So again, it's concise, it attracts attention. You can put quantifiable information in there if you did something with numbers that impacted what you've done, relevant skills, and a tailored role to that summary. And we're going to give you an example. So here's an example of a student's career profile. This student is a motivated student who demonstrates strong work ethic and creative ability, seeking to apply my graphic design skills and artistic drive as a summer intern at your company. Will leverage proven experience and competitive designer to contribute to company goals and needs. So if I'm an employer and I see that, I'm going to say, wow, this person is can write well. Looks like they're very interested. They have a skill set. They have some experience. And I think this might be something I want to continue looking at for this resume. So that's a quick career profile for a student who's looking for an internship. And now if you're looking for employment, you would obviously take out the summer internship and you would talk about employment at the company and what are you looking for? All right. So that is an example of a career profile. Now we have education. So for all of you, education is going to be different as depending on where you're going to go and how you're going to move forward and what you're going to put on your resume. If you are graduating from high school, you can put your high school graduation on there, date of graduation. If you didn't graduate yet, you can put expected graduation date on there. I will say that sometimes students will forget to take off the expected graduation date, or they'll say anticipated June 2025. They'll forget to take the anticipated off after they've graduated, so make sure always updating that. If you're getting a college degree, you want to make sure you have the right degree listed. Sometimes students will get confused and they don't really understand what associate's degree they received or what bachelor's degree they received. So definitely double check that. Make sure you check your transcript and make sure the degree is correct and that you have it listed correctly. But you want to list your education, you most certainly can. As you grow professionally, this section can change too. So say you graduated from high school, you're going on to college. You have your high school information on there now, and now you're starting college. Well, you can put that you're attending college. So now you're attending University at Albany. Anticipated graduation date is June 2029. But once you graduate from SUNY Albany with your 4-year degree, you would take off your high school stuff. So now it's just your college information is up there. Students will ask, can I put my GPA on there? Yes, you can if your GPA is over a 3.0. The one thing that I will see students do is they'll put like, I have a 3.062. You want to round it. So if that was the case, you had a 3.062, you would just put that you have a 3.0. If you're in a National Honor Society, you can absolutely put that as well next to the GPA. And we have an example here for you. I know for for community colleges, Phi Theta Kappa. I think the summa cum laude is 4-year schools, but you can definitely put that there as well. If you're a high school student and you're in a National Honor Society, that can be listed differently, and we'll go over that in a second, but that wouldn't, most of the time students don't put it underneath education. They might list that they're a part of the National Honor Society underneath activities, and then they can talk a little more about that, and we'll get to that in a second. So that's how you list your education. So here we are with honors and awards. And I'm sure you are doing a lot, right? You're probably on different committees and clubs, and you're, a student who wants to do things and you have all these different things to talk about. I always suggest creating a Word doc in which you list everything that you're doing. Sometimes it's really hard to say, like, sit down and build a resume and be like, okay, now what have I done? It's overwhelming to think about. And we forget dates and those sort of things. Or you might have forgotten things that you've done. Time goes by pretty quickly. You have a lot on your plate. And most students I work with will say, I didn't even realize I did that, or I forgot I did this, I didn't put it on my resume. So before you even get to doing this stuff, sit down and just write down things that you've done. Think about the past 4 years in high school. Think about what you're doing in college and write down what kind of clubs, sports, activities, awards, group projects, anything like that you've done, write it down. What was it? What were the dates of it? What was your role in that? And then what were you actively doing? So just get those thoughts on a piece of paper. So when you build your resume, you have something to go to say, I have this all written down. Now I'm going to move it to my resume. So if you're somebody has honors or awards and you want to put on your resume, absolutely put it on there. You can have a section that has honors and awards. You can do them in reverse chronological order. So obviously the dates in which you've gotten them. Most recently, you would list them in order. If you feel that you need to list it and rank it in order by importance because the career might want it more of like what was most relevant and match in this career, you can do that as well. But there might be, here's some examples. There's National Honor Society. I have specific academic awards, athletic or music or art awards, ROTC or military awards or honors. There could be other things too, like an attendance award that maybe you received that can be listed. So some things to think about too, like if you had an academic award, what can you talk about with that? So, like I know that some students do National Honor Society, and by being a National Honor Society, they have to do certain community service or work within the school, or other things they're doing is be a part of that. And then you want to talk about that as well. So you can demonstrate your work ethic on that, your organizational skills, ability to achieve long-term goals, things, bridge that and make it sound like, okay, I've done this stuff. I want to share with this employer or with this college what I've done in high school, that sort of thing. So that's something not to forget about. And I think that sometimes students don't talk about any other awards. I think, oh, if I'm not a National Honor Society, then forget it. I'm not going to put anything down. Think about other things you might have done. Maybe you weren't in National Honor Society, but there was something else that was really specific. Maybe you were in some kind of specific music program where you got an award there and you want to talk about that. Or you were in a business class and there was an opportunity for a program in there that you got an award for and you want to talk about that. All right, so here's also some things that I think is important to think about is being active, being in clubs, right? Doing activities. Lots of times I worked with students and they would come in and want to build a resume or had to build a resume for a class. And I would say, okay, what have you done? And they would come back and say, not much. And I'm like, well, let's talk about that. And I've had students who it was really hard pulling information out of. And what I would say to them is your biggest takeaway from this meeting is to get out there and try to make connections and to start doing some activities to make it, that you can put on your resume, but also get that experience, right? Your resume is for an employer to see and call you in for the interview, but then you're going to be interviewing with people and you're going to be answering a series of questions, and you need to have things that you can show that you have experiences and that you have activities with and that you've done things. So I do find it, I always tell students, find things to do. There are so many things to do on college campuses, in high schools, in the community. Become active, volunteer, join clubs, be involved in sports, student council. These are really, really great opportunities for you, and they're great to put on your resume. So these are different roles. You might have a leadership role in it. You might not. That's okay. You might be a part of the club. Maybe you're the treasurer, or maybe you take the meeting minutes, or whatever it is. But again, these are things that can go on your resume. You can talk about what you've done, and it's great. Employers love these things. Colleges love it as well. Scholarships eat this stuff up. So this is exactly why I talk about these things. I kind of harp on things because I don't think students really understand how important it is to get out of your comfort zone and try new things or be a part of something. So focus on activities that are relevant to the job you're applying for. This could be any kind of extracurricular activity. You might belong to professional memberships. So if you're going to college and you're in like a psych major and you're a student, you can belong to professional memberships and you can be active in different things there. That's something else to put on your resume as well. That's just an example, but there's many more than that. Here's some tips. Don't use abbreviations or acronyms to describe what you're doing. Spell it out here because people might not understand what the club or activity was. So make sure you're doing that. You can place it in date order, or if you think it has to be relevant of importance, you can switch that up too. So those are just some things to think about. But I will say this is a piece that I always talk about. And there are these skill sets that you get from being in these clubs. And we're going to talk about skills in a few minutes, but being a part of a team, whether it's a sports team or it's maybe the debate team, you're working in with a group of people and you're learning communication skills. You're learning so many things from this that is really wonderful, and that's why these sections are important. Okay, so a lot of times when you're a college student or high school junior or senior, you're taking all different types of classes, right? And when you're building your resume, you might not have as much work experience, but you've taken these really good courses and maybe you've done some great things in these courses that can be, great on your resume, and you can talk about these things. I know that when I worked in higher ed, I would have students in specific majors, such as like nursing or automotive or electrical, and they would take very specific courses that were valuable to the employer, that they needed to know they knew that information. Even in high school, there's classes that you might be able to take. And I have some listed here. These are just, Spanish. I have business law, computer science, marketing, economics. It could be social sciences like psych or soc, but it could be journalism. It could be, a unique math course. Maybe you're taking business accounting or something. These classes, I would say, can make you stand out. And so you want to put a section on your resume that says relevant coursework. So if you're applying to a job that's maybe business focused and you took business law and business accounting and maybe a management class or a marketing class while you were in high school, put that down. If you're looking to maybe do some freelance writing and you took journalism, that's a class you might want to talk about, right? So again, these are courses that can help you and it makes you stand out, and it's something that's on your resume, especially when you're starting out. So if you're a high school junior, senior, college freshman, sophomore, this is really helpful. That shows an employer what you know, right? And how you can learn, things like that. I usually tell students, don't put down the courses that everybody needs. Like if it's just generic, like, everybody needs English, everybody needs gym. Those are not courses I would list on your resume. It's unique courses that make you stand out for specific skill sets. Okay. So we're going to talk about experience. And I have a couple slides that's going to talk about how you list what you know and what you've done. So as you're looking to build your resume, you're going to have a section that's going to have your experiences. And so what's considered an experience? Well, a full-time or part-time job, self-employment. Remember I talked about maybe you were babysitting or doing some lawn care. That might be self-employment, volunteer work, practicum, field internship, cooperative education. All of those things are considered some form of experiences. What you want to make sure you have on your resume is the job title, the company you worked for, the city and state, and the dates of employment. So again, get out that handy dandy Word doc that you're creating everything that you've been doing and make sure you write down the jobs that you've had and the dates, and then get some thoughts about what did you do. So that is different types of experience that you can put on your resume. And you can have a section that says work experience, internship experience, volunteer work, and then you can list underneath that section or that heading what you've done. Okay. So this is where students kind of become a little overwhelmed. You worked at Target. We're going to use Target as an example. Everybody knows what Target is. I know I love Target. Who doesn't like Target? So you have a part-time job at Target. What do you do at Target? And I'll work with students, say, what's your part-time job consist of at Target? And they go, oh, not much. I'm a cashier. I just check people out. Or I might walk around and just, organize the shelves or stock the shelves. And that is me telling you what your responsibilities are, right? So you want to list it on your resume. You've got these responsibilities you did at Target. You want to list in bullet points what you've done. So on your resume, you're going to have that you worked at Target, you were a sales associate, you've been there from October of 2023 to present day. And now you're going to have some bullet points talking about those specific experiences that you had in that position. All right. You want to be concise. You want to provide enough detail that the employer that's looking at that knows what you were doing. You want to make sure the verbs are good. I'll give you some verbs in a second. You want to make sure your tenses are correctly. You want to use a present tense if you're currently working in that position or doing that position. Past tense if you're no longer working there. And you want to change around what you're saying. You don't want to use the same word over and over and over again. Sometimes I think students don't know which words to use and they get a little confused on that, and they'll use the same word over and over again to describe what they've done. So they're listing their responsibilities. They'll say the word provided or developed for everything they've done because they don't really know how to make it sound any different or better. So that's something we're going to talk about in a quick second. But each description of your work history and volunteer experience should be clear, concise, yet descriptive. After reading your description, employer would want to think, wow, what are this person's got good responsibilities. We know what their skills are, what they're developing, where your strengths are. They're going to know all that from just reading what you have on your resume. Begin each item by stating, and I kind of went over some of this, but I'm going to show you a picture in a minute, but you want to make sure that you're clear as to where you're working, what your title was, what the dates were, and then those bullets underneath it. Try to avoid things like using the word I or and the or me or my in the descriptions. You want to make them, again, clear and concise. You definitely don't want to put like I was stocking shelves. That's not how you want to describe it. You might want to say, was the floor stocker for aisles 1 through 10, was responsible for making sure each aisle was clean, tidy, and well stocked for customers. I'm not saying that I wanted to make sure. I took that out. Okay. So here's some examples. I'm a visual person, so I like to see how things look. So here's a student. They have some related experience to wherever they're applying to, so on the top, and then they have some work experience underneath. So this person, I'm assuming they're into looking to do something with music. They have related experience. They were an intern at Jazz Business Solutions. When were they? For fall of 2023. And underneath that, you see some bullet points of specific things that individual did during this internship. So they updated company website, including reformatting layout, uploading photographs, and writing content, advertising new services. So again, it's telling the employer what they did. So on the top part, you see the related experience, where it was, what they did, what their title was, what the time period was, and then those bullets are explaining what that person did. On the bottom, you're going to see work experience. So they have some work experience. Looks like they're currently employed, according to this resume. They're a shift leader at McDonald's, and here's some things that they were doing. They were promoted, so that's nice. They were, they weren't working as a shift leader to begin with. They were promoted, so that sounds really good. They supervise and train new employees. They operate a cash register. They're cashing out the registers at the end of the day, probably, and they're assisting with customer service. So again, this is a good example of just showing how you have your titles of your experiences and then your responsibilities underneath it. Here's another example just to give you, this is a person who's in high school. And this just looks, I like this one because it talks about student activities and leadership and then volunteer experience. It doesn't have any specific work experience yet, but it's showing an employer that they bring a lot to the table. So this person was an Albany high school student. They were on the football team. They had some things they did with academics there as well. They were a club member, a community service club member. They were the president of that and what they did underneath that. And then the bottom, they have some volunteer experience. So it looks like they were working for the youth ministry and they were helping with childcare. So again, this is a person who doesn't have any paid work experience, but has a lot to bring to the table through volunteer experience and through activities and leadership. So I would just went over all of that. That's a lot to take in. So, just take a minute. I know I'm giving you a lot of information in a small amount of time. Again, this is all food for thought. And hopefully, getting more familiar with this is helpful because as you move forward, it will be not new information for you. So when you hear it again down there, you're like, oh, I've heard of all of this before. So now we're using action words. So remember when I talked about describing what you've done and those responsibilities of your job or your, being in a club member or being in athletics, you want to make sure that when you're writing those clear phrases, you are having short, clear phrases that are concise and direct. You use language of work in which you're applying for. You have select power words that target the audience, right? It's what the audience is, those employers. They want to make sure that they're like, oh, wow, this is really good writing. This word describes what they're doing. So here are some examples: creating a new learning system for students or develop forms to better organize clubs. Avoid things like my duties were, I worked for, which I kind of already brought up. But again, it's those power words. Begin with action words when you describe things. So here's some right here: implemented, developed, coordinated, evaluated. These are all really good action words or verbs that show what you've done. So here's some that I have here for you. Again, ideas. Collaborate is a great word to use. It shows that you can be a part of a team, work with others. If you're a leader, you led or you lead, that's another great one to show too, that you can, lead a group, or, maybe you're, coming up with good ideas to help people in different directions. Organize, analyze, demonstrate, control, create, produce, facilitate, and motivate. Again, these are just some examples of action words, but these are definitely good ones to use. And when you're describing what you've done for any type of work you've had or internship, it's also things to think about too as you're looking to go into the world of work. These are things that employers look for. So understanding that this is what might make you marketable is what you want to also make sure you're doing in your job, or an internship or a school class or working with a group. All right, so we're going back to Slido again, but this one's a little bit different. You're going to have to type in a skill. So what's an example of a skill? Give me an example of any kind of skill. And I'll give you a second to type it in there. Uh-oh, is everybody really quiet? Are you all falling asleep? I hope you're waking up. Any skill. What do you think? Well, somebody's typing, okay. Community building. Yep, that's a great skill. Microsoft Word. Perfect. These are good skills. Web design. Yep. Excel. Yep. Customer service. Multilingual accommodation. Yes. Translation. Awesome. Okay. Bilingual. Wow, these are really, really good skills. Absolutely. These are all wonderful skills to have. Absolutely. I'm glad that you said web design because I feel like nobody talks about this. Oh, adaptable. Yep. Perfect. All right. Yeah, Excel, web design, Microsoft Word, communication, awesome. Technology, right? That's a huge skill. Operate a cash register. Yep, yep. And even I think some of the cash registers now are more like technology, right? With all the different ways to scan things in or how you have to check somebody out, right? It's a form of a technology. Um, Looks like a couple more skills are coming in. POS system. I'm not so sure what that is, but it's probably a skill, a specific skill for something. Literacy skills, full comprehension of word. Yep. Wow, these are really good skills. So thank you. Wonderful. Perfect. Such a variety of skill sets. So we all have different types of skills, multitask, typing. Yep. So now we're going to break down these types of skills, right? We'll use some of these as examples as we move forward, but these are great examples of different types of skills. We all have different levels of how to do these skills. Like I'm familiar with Excel. I'm not an expert in Excel, right? I have a basic understanding and I can use it, but I'm not a professional in it, right? So I understand the skill, but I don't know if I'm a master in that skill. Time management, another one, perfect. Yep. And some of these skills you're going to learn, and you know them and you're familiar with them. And as you grow professionally, you're going to become even better at them. Okay. So wonderful. Thank you guys for participating. Great job. So we have soft skills. So I think somebody put communication on there. I saw multitasking, time management. Soft skills are things that I think we often forget about. Employers love soft skills. I know when I was working in higher ed, the one thing that employers would say to us all the time was, our students come to us and they're very prepared with understanding the tech side of what they need to do or the specific skill set in the actual job, but they always seem to lack some of the soft skills. And those are things like really good communication or problem solving, adaptability, being creative, leadership, listening, honesty. There's more than just those soft skills. There's lots of soft skills out there. But these are skills in which we all have. And we might be better at some than others, but we need to work on them and we need to make sure that we have the right soft skills at hand when we're working in a position. And these are, they are with you. They're carried with you from one position to another. And maybe you go from one job and you're not really doing any problem solving in that job and that role, but you go to a different job where you're doing more problem solving. So you're perfecting that soft skill. You're becoming better at that. And in interviews, they're going to ask you, like, can you talk about some of your skills? And they might ask you, like, what are some of the soft skills that you can bring to the position? And these are things you can talk about. You can have a skill section on your resume. So again, skills are very important, and you can have a skill section. We're going to have a variety of different skills listed there, and some of them might be soft skills. So that is soft skills. And then we have hard skills. So hard skills are more those technical skills that might be required for a job, something very specific that you're learning through an education or experience, whether it's like on the job training or it's through a certification. You were taught a specific set of skills that it's needed for a job to get done, and that's on your resume. And employers are going to look for that skill set when they're hiring you. So, example, like I said, I worked with automotive and electrical, or like nursing students, and employers were looking for specific things from those students that were hard skills. If they want to, and I chuckle because I'm not an electrician, but yet I knew what kind of skills they needed. So it's certain types of wiring and framing and grounding and things like that they had to have on their resume that the employer was looking for specifically. There's other types of hard skills. One thing that I think that we do a lot with is using the phones, right? So social media, that could be a hard skill that you maybe really are well versed in certain platforms on that. Um, there you go there. Technical writing, a certain way to write. That's another hard skill. If you're going into some profession and you have to write a certain way and you have the ability to do that, that is great. Language skills. If you speak a different language and you're very good at language, you pick up language. That's a hard skill. Bookkeeping, computer skills, design. Again, depending on the career you're looking at, hard skills are can be um, you know considered different for what different careers you're going into. But like I said, I came from like working with people with specific degree types, and they had to have certain things that they knew how to do. And there was a whole section that listed that on there. So that's a hard skill. Now, you have soft skills, you have hard skills, then you have transferable skills. Transferable skills can mesh these skills together, but there are things that you're going to bring with you from one job to another. It can be a combination of soft skills and hard skills, and you're going to learn them and become more comfortable with them, and then they're going to go with you and they help build your resume. So when you look at, employer looks at you like, wow, you have all these transferable skills. You have problem solving, you have critical thinking, you have maybe it's a technical grant writing that you can do, and you're really comfortable with different types of technology platforms, and you've learned that through education or through different forms of employment, or maybe you were in an apprenticeship or on the job training, and you're now listing these different skills and they go with you from one job to another and they become bigger and stronger. And again, this is wonderful. They're also talking points in a job interview as what you can do. All right. You want to also realize that as you're learning skills, and nobody's perfect. There's always room for improvement. There's always room for constant learning and upskilling and training. And so depending on where you're going to go, and I think every career field, there's a component of always learning what is new. So, and I think that's great, right? You want to always make sure you're learning the newest things and you're improving and you're adding that to your resume. Employers love to see that you are willing to continuously learn and do better. So that's something to think about as you're growing professionally. So there are different types of skills needed for different lines of work. I have a little picture down there of some kind of weird looking figures, putting those pieces of the puzzle together. And again, there's teamwork and there's leadership and there's planning and organization and team building. Those are all definitely transferable skills. Okay. So here's some resources that you can utilize. Department of Labor has a great website. There's a booklet on there about resumes and cover letters. It gives so much information. It's wonderful. It talks about job applications as well. It gives information about interviewing. So I think that's a good resource to utilize. For those of you that are in high school, you probably have Naviance and you use Career Zone. That's another good starting point for building your resume. There are resume builders in there that can help you build your resume. And I think that is really helpful and good for you to utilize. The other thing that I think is really helpful too is utilizing what's around you, right? And, for those of you who are college students, look at what's at your college. A lot of colleges have career and resource centers that can help you build your resume. They can help you work on things. Look at your local library. They do a lot of these libraries get grants to do different workshops with individuals on building a resume. School guidance offices can be really helpful. These are things that are right around you that are willing to help you. So the biggest thing I can say is building a resume can be not the easiest thing to do. It's not something you do all the time. And people do find it overwhelming sometimes. And again, I would sit with students and they would say to me, I have nothing to put on my resume. And I'm like, I find that hard to believe. And then through a conversation with them, they couldn't believe how much stuff they could put on their resume, or they didn't think they should put it on their resume when they should. So having a conversation with somebody is huge because you might not even realize how much you know and how much you can put on there. Um, and a lot of times it's wording things, like I love when students say, I just worked a register, and they think it's so like silly. And I'm like, so you provided good quality customer service and you handled money transactions and you multitasked and worked in a fast paced environment. And they're like, oh yeah, that's the things that's how you have to think about it. You want to make sure that you're looking at what you've done and you're utilizing it to the best of your advantage and you're not underselling yourself, because sometimes I think you sell yourself short. So that's my biggest piece of advice is, this is a lot of information that I gave you in a very small amount of time. I know I do a lot of talking, and sometimes I go a little bit too quick, but I think, you want to just take a step back, get yourself organized with your thoughts and what you've done, get it on a piece of paper. And if you're not so sure how to format it and you're not so sure if it looks right, ask for help. You can use online platforms to help you as well. I know that, we're living in a crazy world of AI, and it can be wonderful, but it's something that it can be useful, but you don't want to copy your resume 100% from an AI, like a chat GPT. You want to make sure it's your own personal writing and it represents you and it has a personal component to it. And I think that people can tell sometimes when it's done by chat GPT. So, while it's a helpful tool and it can get you going, it shouldn't be the only thing that you're using. So that's just kind of a couple pieces of advice there. So these are some resources, and we'll put some more stuff in the chat too. And then what's next? So next Wednesday, which is April 9th, at 4 o'clock, we'll have a resume review workshop. With this workshop, space is limited. So if you really want to go to this, definitely make sure you're signing up. This is where you get to meet one-on-one with an employment counselor. So you'll have a session, I believe about 15 minutes, to meet with an employment counselor to go over your actual resume. So prepare something, get it on a piece of paper, and be ready to share. It's a virtual platform, so you're going to have to share your screen with the employment counselor, and they're going to look at it and give you some feedback on that. If you have specific questions you want to ask, like maybe you have a resume, but you just don't know if you should rearrange it, or if you should change the verbiage on it, or where you should make it better, bring it and ask those kind of questions. We will give you a feedback. Again, it's only a 15-minute appointment, so make sure you're ready. You're ready to share your screen, and everything's ready to go. Okay. But I think that's a great opportunity too, to get some feedback on what you might already have. So now you've listened to me for the past like 40 minutes or so talk about a resume and how to build it and how to make it better, or get something on a piece of paper. And now you can utilize that even further by meeting with somebody one-on-one and going over it with them. All right. So any questions? Any questions at all? Oop. Can't see the.
Someone says, are you releasing these slides? I know it's being recorded. Piper, can we release them?
Yes, we are going to be posting this on our YouTube channel where you can view it within the next couple of days. I can send out a link too to all the participants. Any other questions?
I see one. Do all industries use tracking systems? I'm applying for film internships, companies like Sony Pictures or Warner Brothers. I mean, I believe you don't know what any employer is using. I do think that most employers are using something, some kind of a system, especially a bigger company. I do feel like film is one of those, film, graphic design, those digital portfolios, that's a little bit different. They might have you require more from you, because they're looking for not only your resume, but what you've made or what you've produced when it comes to film. So if you're in if this is an internship, I would say refer back, if you're in school, refer back to a faculty member or somebody in the program to get more clarification with that. I just know that film can be somewhat tricky and hard. But I would say err on the side of caution that they're probably using an applicant tracking system to look at your resume. Yes. Can you link your digital portfolio? Oh, sorry, you got that one. I don't see anything else. Oh, wait.
I don't see anything else either.
I'm graduating with a major in childhood education, 1st through 6th, and a concentrate in art. Where do you think I should place my concentration skills in creative art? So, okay. So you're going to be an art, I'm assuming art teacher, for elementary ed. So that would be on your resume as well. So you would list the degree. You would list your degree as childhood ed, 1st through 6th, and not a BS. I think it's a BS. I have to look. I'm not so sure if it's a BS or BA. But then you could list underneath that you have a concentration, and or if you have a minor, you can list it under there and put that as well. And then I would think if you're doing any kind of internship or student teaching, you want to really, obviously talk about the art stuff that you're doing, make that shine, so that they can see that you've done this internship. And I believe you have to have student teaching for 1st through 6th. You're going to have to do, I believe, 2 different sessions. Each session has to be 15 weeks. So you have to have so many hours. It's like a year, of you doing it. It has to be in different locations. So you're going to have plenty of things to talk about. So I would also make sure you're highlighting that in your resume as well, that your student teaching is huge and what you've done in your student teaching, and make sure you're talking about the art stuff that you've done, but also you're talking about working with other teachers and how you've helped students and things like that. And you will have an online portfolio through Teach. That's going to help you as well. Can you list projects on your resume? And if so, how can you describe it? So you can list a project. For example, I know one college that every student as a senior has to take a course, and that requires you to do a community project, and the college works with the community to see what type of organizations need help, and then you get assigned an organization. So you can have a whole section that talks about the project that you've done, and then you can have a heading like, it could be a community project or a volunteer experience or whatever the project. I don't have the details on the project specifically, but you can talk about that project and what it incorporated. What did you do? What was your role? Was it something that was only, how long did the project take you to do? Was it a whole full year project? Was it a project that only took 2 months? There's definitely some different variables there, but it's definitely something you can list on your resume. And I do think lots of colleges do now have you do some kind of hands-on component of a project. Even high schools are doing that too now. So yeah.
I think we're good, Piper.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. I just wanted to give you a couple of reminders. My name is Piper. I'm with Higher Education Services Corporation. Thank you to everyone who attended this presentation. Any additional questions should be directed to the path at HESC.ny.gov. I'll put that in the chat as well. And as Shauna mentioned, we have our second part of the resume building series coming up on April 9th at 4 p.m. These are very limited spots, so please register tonight if you're interested. You'll have a 15-minute window to receive constructive feedback and expert suggestions to help improve your resume. And I also put in the chat additional upcoming HESC events. So please review those. We have tons of events coming up in April. We'd love for you to attend. And I just want to thank you again so much for attending this presentation. Thank you, Shauna. Thank you, Sarah. And I hope you all have a good night and good luck with your resumes.
Have a good night, guys.